Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Today is May 29th, 2026, and we have the honor in our today's office hours, to have Sylvia, Anna, and Anna from UNAM in a university in Mexico City, who will be sharing today insights of the most recent publications of the book Learning Together, Fostering Communities of Dialogic Inquiry. And we're going to have a great session learning more about their work and takeaways and highlights from their work. So, welcome to the three of you. Thank you for joining us today. And yeah, I'll pass it to you, Sylvia and team.
Okay, well, thank you very much, John, Mara, Charles, for the opportunity to be here. We are very happy. Our collaboration goes way back, and to interact with the using crowds is very exciting for me. You know, in the 90s, Charles and Mike Cole very generously hosted us not only once, but several times in California. We visited many of the sites that you have, and we were so impressed ever since for the magnificent work that you do, all the lives that you have touched, the community, the scope of your achievements are amazing, and your work has very much impacted our own work. So we will tell you a little bit about it. And well, I am Sylvia. I work at the Faculty of Psychology, and
my name is Ana Luisa. Everyone here at the faculty calls me Annie to differentiate between the other Anna. You can call me Annie as well. I am a professor at the Faculty of Psychology at UNAM. And Ana Laura.
Ana Laura, very nice to meet you all. Also the other Anna. I am a professor here at the Faculty of Psychology, and we are more in the area of educational psychology.
So we work together and we wrote the book together. So we'll tell you a bit about it. Okay, so we'll start with the presentation. Okay, the title of our talk is Designing Learning Environments to Cultivate Communities of Dialogic Inquiry in Primary Education. And in this chat, we have two main aims. We would like first to share some main contributions from our recently published book. Here is the front, Learning Together, Fostering Communities of Dialogic Inquiry, written by the three of us. We would also like to discuss some implications of these contributions to tackle some current social, educational, and environmental challenges. We will only be briefly mentioning some of these, but we will very much welcome your input and joining in this discussion during question time. Okay, what are the characteristics of our book? In a nutshell, our book explores theory, empirical evidence, methods, and their practical applications in order to elucidate how we can create innovative learning environments for children that can harness the potential of human social and communicative interactions in order to foster development, learning, and teaching. And in this presentation, we will focus on three main contributions. I will start with describing a methodological framework that we call Learning Together, that we designed to foster communities of dialogic inquiry in primary education. And this represents very much the vertebral column of the whole book. And then my co-authors will talk about two products that derive from this framework. Annie will describe an educational program that we call Inquire, that was created to promote scientific and cultural literacy for sustainable development. And Ana Laura will close with an instrument called the Toolkit to Enhance Dialogic Inquiry that is aimed at supporting teachers in enriching their daily classroom practices. Okay, in essence, this methodological framework, Learning Together, establishes the groundwork for designing communities of dialogic inquiry in diverse school and out-of-school settings of primary education. It further offers applied researchers, decision makers, and practitioners different tools and strategies so that they can implement changes towards situated dialogic practices in these settings at at least two levels. One is a local level that is called assimilative, that influences classroom practices or can influence, and the other is a more global level that is called systemic level that can impact institutions as a whole, gradually allowing to transform them. Okay, what are the characteristics of communities of dialogic inquiry? Basically, these communities create collaborative networks of distributed cognition among members of the school, the university, and local communities to cultivate a scientific and humanistic culture among all, and what we call a socioscientific culture. And of course, here you can see the great influence that your model of UCLinks has had in our work. Participants of these communities of practice engage in dialogic inquiry to jointly create, apply, and disseminate knowledge, and I will be defining this central construct shortly. The ultimate aim of these communities is to equip apprentices with a solid scientific foundation that is complemented by a robust humanistic citizenship base so that they can participate in socioscientific practices in an informed, critical, responsible, and inclusive manner. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about the origins of this methodological framework. Learning Together started in the early 90s as an educational program to enhance the social, cognitive, and psycholinguistic development of underserved primary school children from public schools. And the Fifth Dimension and the Thinking Together programs and the high-scope curriculum were central influences in its design and implementation. And unlike the Fifth Dimension programs and the UC-Link sites that run mostly as after-school programs, in Mexico there are not the conditions to establish, not then and not even now, to establish after-school programs for many structural and institutional reasons. So we decided to implement the program as in-school program. And we worked in multimedia classrooms that we designed for the purpose with modular furniture, computers, similar to the sites that you have. Nearly 30 years of empirical testing show that the program had potential to enhance learning and development, and this include collaborative and individual problem solving, reasoning and argumentation, comprehension and production of texts of different genres, and regulatory abilities involved in learning to learn. Unfortunately, eventually the program had to close down for many institutional reasons, and gradually we transformed its main assets into a methodological framework to cultivate communities of dialogic inquiry, and we retained the same name. And this is the essence of the book. And also through a collaboration with the Institute of Ecology at UNAM, and this includes the National Laboratory of Sustainability Sciences, we designed the Inquiry program, and this design was very much guided by the Learning Together methodological framework. And we have tested Inquiry empirically in the last 4 years, and in this phase of our work, we are working with mostly with private schools of middle class origin, because unfortunately the educational authorities have precluded people not hired by the university, by the school to work in their premises. So we have moved to the private sector, but we expect to hopefully go back to the public sector. Okay, I will use examples of inquiry in order to illustrate the functioning of learning together. Okay, a little bit in terms of theoretical background, Learning Together is underpinned by complementary sociocultural, dialogic, and multiliteracy perspectives on development, learning, and teaching. And in order to organize the framework, we drew on Rogoff's plain sociocultural activity theoretical model, which I'm sure you're familiar with, so I will briefly describe it. The model proposes to analyze sociocultural activity across 3 interrelated planes that mutually constitute one another, and each plane focuses on certain developmental and learning processes which complement each other. Okay, in order to illustrate the model very quickly, I'm going to use a scene from a field trip that we did as part of implementing Inquire. We went to the Magdalena River, which is the only living river in Mexico City, in the outskirts. And here we visited an ecotouristic center, which is a pristine, conservation project. And we looked at water quality in 2 parts of the river basin. The upper part, which is more pristine, the scene here shows, and then the lower part where there's more commercial activity. And we use different indicators, including physical, chemical, biological, and so forth. And here in this scene, we're all, this is teachers, students, academics, undergraduate, graduate students from UNAM. We are looking for the presence of different bichitos, different animals here, that including the Trichoptera, who are indicators of good water quality. Okay, so this is, an apprenticeship system of sorts. So if we look at it from a broad perspective, this is the community plane, and we look at the whole apprenticeship system. Who are the participants? What are they doing? Which mediating artifacts are they employing to achieve their goals, and so on? Then we have a an interpersonal plane that is focused on processes of guided participation. How are experts and novices interacting and guiding development and learning? How are peers interacting, and so on? And then we have an individual plane that focuses on processes of participatory appropriation. Here the questions can be what skills, knowledge, abilities, practices are individuals appropriating as part of participating in this apprenticeship system. Okay, let me tell you about how we have adopted this model. We used it to organize our framework, learning together, also into planes. And at the community plane, we have defined or designed different global intervention strategies. And this includes networking, situated learning, and structuring the learning environment. And these are expected to work in combination to foster communities of dialogic inquiry as apprenticeship systems. I'll tell you a little bit about them. The first one, networking, which you will very much recognize, because we create collaborative partnerships among members of the school, the university, and local communities, inspired very much by the UCLINK's model. As I said, we work mostly in schools, but in other settings as well. Teachers, students, parents, directives from the school, coordinators, we collaborate with them. Also in the classrooms, we work hand in hand with teachers, undergrad students and graduate students and academics. We design together with them the sessions and conduct the sessions in the classrooms. We also work in other settings with the community, with the families, here in the museum, or also with local communities, including farmers, merchants, fishermen, and so on. Okay, the other very related strategy is situated learning, where we link children's school learning with other complementary activities in out-of-school settings, such as science museums and environmental education centers. And in our experience, this is very motivating for the children. It's meaningful and it helps consolidate learning. And to design this strategy, we drew on proposals such as Leva-Bamger's model of situated learning, Rogoff's learning by observing and pitching in model of informal learning, and principles of inquiry-based learning. Then we have the other strategy at this level is structuring the learning environment, where children learn to participate in socioscientific practices through collaborative research projects on diverse socio-ecological and sustainable development issues. And then in order to make these practices as close as possible, bring them as close as possible to genuine, authentic practices, children present their posters and we publish their academic articles and present posters and conferences at a science fair. And to design this strategy, we use the Thinking Together ideas from the Thinking Together program, high scope curriculum, the DIALS initiative, and we have collaborated with colleagues from all these proposals, as well as the learning by design model. And here we have examples of the children doing different projects and then preparing to present their poster in the cultural fair, and here delivering a talk. Okay, the global strategies at the community plane that I have just described are combined with local strategies that function more at the interpersonal plane, and they focus on guided participation enacted through dialogic inquiry. We owe a lot of our work to seminal work of Gordon Wells. For him, dialogic inquiry refers to a stance towards the learning experience that is characterized by a willingness to question and seek an understanding of social and natural phenomena through collaboration with others using dialogue. Through dialogic inquiry, participants encourage the plural encounter of diverse voices and minds to pose and respond to queries, to generate and apply solutions to problems, and to think and learn together by expressing, contrasting, critiquing, challenging, and negotiating ideas supported by argumentation and evidence. And we promote dialogic inquiry through many diverse social and communicative interactions among all community members in school and out of school settings and in various organizational arrays. And Ana Laura will tell you more about it with our tool, Teddy. Okay, then at the individual plane, as I said before, are processes of participatory appropriation. And at this plane, learning together defines what is the target repertoire of knowledge, abilities, and values that learners are expected to appropriate as part of the participation in the socioscientific practices that are characteristics of this apprenticeship system. And the global intervention strategies that I mentioned at the community plane, in combination with the local strategies at the interpersonal plane, are expected to nurture this repertoire at the individual plane. And this repertoire centers on collaborative problem solving. That is the basis of the work that we do. And this in itself eventually encourages the development of scientific and cultural literacy, and all of these nurture longer term abilities involved in learning to learn. Here we have a scene of another field trip that we did to the Xochimilco Park, where we learned about a very interesting project that UNAM has with the local farmers, where they grow their crops in a sustainable way with agroecological practices, and these coexist with a conservation project to conserve the axolotl, Mexican axolotl, that is an endangered species and very much an emblematic creature in Mexico. Okay, so this is basically in very briefly how our methodological framework is organized. I would like to close by just very briefly mentioning some implications for addressing social and educational challenges. In the book, we develop this at length, and we talk about different implications, but I will only refer to two of them. One of them has to do with a multiliteracy argument. In the book, we echo the argument made by the New London Group to advocate for a multiliteracy approach to account for the multiplicity of contemporary meaning-making social practices. And as I said before, the multiliteracy approach underpins our proposal. The authors of the New London Group argue that current social, economic, and cultural world changes reflect increasing global interconnectedness, but this goes alongside also with more local diversity, more multiculturalism, multilingualism, and multimodality in our society. And this reality demands people to develop sophisticated, multifaceted, and versatile learning repertoires to swiftly adapt to all these changing demands in work, citizenship, and identity. We believe that communities of dialogic inquiry represent really very fertile niches where the seeds of some of these repertoires can germinate and thrive. The other argument I'd like to close with is one to do with information and disinformation. At present, we know that we constantly navigate immense waves of information that provides us with multiple readily available sources of inspiration so that we can create knowledge. However, many digital sources are increasingly plagued with non-filtered disinformation, conspiracy theories, pseudoscience, including science denialism, fake news, and the like. And we all have suffered the influence of these terrible things, and especially since the pandemic, where this became tsunamis of misinformation, when we were forced to live almost entirely online. And several authors and organizations have analyzed the roots of this pressing, far-reaching problem that some authors call infodemics from diverse angles, and this includes health, politics, education, international policies, and cognitive science, among others. And they have proposed solutions or measures to tackle them. Just to give you an example, Steven Pinker, a well-renowned cognitive scientist, explains why humans hold and are susceptible to all these outlandish beliefs. Some people are fascinated with all these conspiracy theories and so on. And he argues that humans are fallible, prone to misconceptions, and tend towards irrationality. And he gives very interesting explanations, evolutionary explanations for these tendencies. And as part of the proposals, he says that diverse social spaces and institutions should promote critical thinking. And he says that in many spaces and institutions should really also encourage open-mindedness, which is this capacity to seek not only evidence or arguments that confirm our beliefs or expectations, which is very much a human tendency, but also those which disconfirm them, and be willing to change our mind accordingly. And In fact, critical thinking and open-mindedness are at the heart of dialogic inquiry, and this is one of the reasons why it's important. Okay, to conclude, in the book we argue that cultivating from an early age a broad socioscientific culture that is rooted in dialogic inquiry can in fact contribute to tackling some of the social and educational problems that we discuss in the book. This culture needs to be promoted throughout all levels of formal education, as well as in diverse community and institutional spaces to achieve sustainable changes over time. Okay, thank you very much, and I give the floor to Annie.
Hi, thank you. It's a pleasure to be joining this session this morning. Well, I will dip a bit in the Inquire program. So Inquire, as Sylvia just mentioned, developed based on the Learning Together methodological framework. So this program resulted on is the result of an interdisciplinary project between psychologists and ecologists at UNAM. In this project, the participants are students, undergraduate and graduate students, and also researchers and professors of these both institutions, the Faculty of Psychology and the Institute of Ecology at UNAM. The objective of Inquire is to promote an articulated repertoire of knowledge, abilities, and values so that primary school students can understand how human actions can contribute to protect or damage socio-ecological systems. Students can learn to investigate these phenomena through collaborative research projects. And the students can learn to value and protect nature by designing and implementing responsible, sustainable solutions for the conservation of these socio-ecological systems. As Sylvia mentioned, Inquiry is based on a dialogic perspective on teaching and learning. That is, that dialogue plays a key role in mediating teaching and learning processes, and thus we believe that it is fundamental to promote dialogic interactions between teachers and students as well as among peers. To have a common understanding of what dialogic interactions are, I will share with you a definition. So dialogic interactions are those kind of verbal interactions that stimulate and extend students' understanding, thinking, and learning. These interactions encourage the expressions of ideas, of critical analysis of the participants. They encourage position taking, questioning, justification, negotiation of ideas, reconciliation of multiple perspectives, and the collaborative construction of knowledge. We also follow a multiliteracies approach. I will dip in a bit more on this one. Following Cope and Calancis, we stress that the traditional view of literacy as this ability to communicate in the national language needs to be updated because of multiculturalism, multimodality. By multiculturalism, we mean this growing diversity in cultures, genders, and experiences that influence the construction of social and cultural meanings and practices. And by multimodality, that in the digital age we are currently living, there is an increasing multiplicity and integration of semiotic modes. Following this multiliteracies approach, we promote in students scientific and cultural literacy in combination. We believe that by promoting both of these, we try to help develop in students these broader perspectives for addressing socio-environmental issues through sustainable, critical, inclusive, collaborative approaches. So what we mean by scientific and cultural literacy in very general terms, we say a lot about this in the book, but right now, just very briefly, scientific literacy has to do with promoting students' abilities so they can engage critically and reflectively with socioscientific issues by questioning, by explaining, by applying and transforming knowledge. The goal is to foster the development of knowledge, abilities, and values that can enable students to become informed and critical users of scientific knowledge. And by cultural literacy, we draw on this international project that Sylvia mentioned, DIALS project, that was led by Fiona Main, a colleague at the University of Exeter currently. And from this initiative, we adapted some of the things that they were promoting. One of the main ideas that we take in the Inquire program is that culture is not static, rather it is continuously created through social interaction among people. And thus, cultural literacy has to do with these people's willingness to engage in social interactions grounded in tolerance, empathy, and inclusion. For this aim, dialogue and argumentation are key as a means and as an end in themselves, as a means for understanding culture and diversity, and as an end in themselves because developing these societies and these interactions based on tolerance, empathy, and inclusion, I believe is something that we all want. So how do we implement Inquire? The activities that I will share with you, as Sylvia mentioned, have been developed, constructed mainly with the teachers, the school teachers, the school coordinators, the undergraduate, graduate students, the researchers, the professors of the Faculty of Psychology and the Institute of Ecology, and in the school. So when I say we, I mean this broad team of people working together. So the school activities had to do with some modules, 3 modules that are interconnected and complementary. The exploring the natural and social world and carrying out research projects modules developed through the science and the laboratory lessons mainly. They had to do with students getting to know more about socioscientific issues. And the third module, reflecting on our relationships with others and with nature, developed mainly on civic education lessons. And in these lessons, we promote discussions with the students so they can understand that socioecological issues and critically reflect on how these socioecological issues are shaped by interconnected social, economic, and environmental factors. These school activities are complemented by out-of-school activities. These visits to museums, to Mexican museums. All these 3 museums listed are at Mexico City, in Mexico City. And our visits, when we do these visits, previously, we designed some thematic routes with the museum coordinators based on the research projects that the students are developing. In this second module, I forget to say, carrying out research projects, the students develop their own research projects collaboratively based on a socioecological issue that is meaningful to them. So based on these research projects, we also carry out these thematic routes at the museums. So students can have this opportunity to speak more about the research projects and ask questions and engage in conversations with museum experts and museum educators. And then we also do these field trips to the Magdalena River, to Xochimilco, these sites of ecological restoration initiatives. Inquire collaborates with the local communities of these sites to design learning experiences that help students understand how social, economic, and environmental dimensions can come into tension, creating these socio-environmental dilemmas. Okay, and then the dissemination activities have to do with the students sharing. The school science and culture fair happens once every year after students have finalized their research projects. This is the main event in which the students share with the local community, because they come attend the fair. The local community, the university community, and the school community, they share their findings, their learning experiences, and their projects in these fairs. And also we developed the Sustainable Development Forum, where some Mexican biologists and ecologists shared with the school community certain initiatives that they are developing to face environmental problems. And currently, we are working with these researchers to make these workshops in a digital workshops that can be shared more broadly with teachers, with the students, and anyone interested in these initiatives mainly. So, yep. And finally, I conclude saying that there is much to be done. The preliminary results are encouraging. Participants in the Inquire program score significantly higher than their peers in equivalent control groups on assessments of scientific literacy, multimodal text comprehension, knowledge of socioecological phenomena. We also have observed that children progress through the Inquire, as the children progress through the Inquire program, they engage in increasingly complex discussions about interrelationships about cultural themes when addressing socioscientific issues. We have also observed that they develop abilities to debate, to ask questions, to propose solutions, to reflect critically on socioscientific issues. However, these achievements remain modest so far, and patterns are not entirely consistent. We know that it takes time for these ability set to develop. So we also recognize that teacher professional development is essential for strengthening these abilities. And so I give the floor to Ana Laura so she can tell us a bit more about this teacher professional initiative.
Thank you, Annie. I'm just going to change a bit the screen so you can see my presentation. I will be presenting the Toolkit for Enhancing Dialogic Inquiry, or TEDI. So just going back a little bit to the previous presentations, we have found out that there are certain elements that allow us to create learning environments where children can participate in dialogic interactions and they can develop their both cultural and scientific literacies. However, the type of interactions and these literacies that we expect to see, the repertoires that are involved with knowledge, values, and dispositions related to these literacies are not always present in the everyday life of children or students in general. Referring to the recent work of UK researcher Robin Alexander, he mentions that it seems that we live in a post-truth world where there is a growing gap between the rational and evidence-based ways of dialoguing that we would like to see in educational contexts and the more fragmented and chaotic discourse that you can find in online platforms like social media, fake news, and other areas where the information is even anonymous. So, if we want to prepare students to have the skills to participate in a democratic community, be critical, collaborate with others, and develop their both scientific and cultural literacies, we believe we need to give them the environment that allows them to practice those skills and repertoires that we like to promote. And we think that there are two priorities related to this. One of them is prioritizing teacher professionalization and support. And this involves helping them or supporting them in enacting their agency as professionals. This includes viewing them more as decision makers that can look into new approaches, adapt them, interpret them, and adjust them to the characteristics of their context and their students. And part of this support can also include establishing collaborations with them and presenting pedagogical tools and resources that are informed by robust theory, as well as empirical research, in ways that we can support teachers in making decisions to transform everyday practices into more situated and collaborative teaching and learning practices. The other thing we suggest could help in promoting these repertoires for children is promoting dialogic inquiry, because we think it can create the environments and activities in which they can practice all these repertoires and abilities. Before I move on, I would like to describe how we see dialogic inquiry in our research. As mentioned previously by Sylvia, Wells introduced the term dialogic inquiry related to the work of Vygotsky and Halliday, and it's a way of looking as an approach to education where language is centered in the center. So we believe that learning emerges when we collaborate with others and we discuss new meanings and we create knowledge together. With this view, dialogic inquiry can be described as a disposition towards questioning and understanding ideas and experiences through collaborating and having dialogue with others. Wells also suggests that if we want to adopt that approach in an educational context, we should transform classrooms into communities of inquiry, but where teachers and students are willing to wander together, ask questions, and jointly seek answers to the questions they're posing. In our work, dialogic inquiry is related to engaging in social, communicative, and intellectual activities that are oriented towards wondering, exploring, and experimenting with the natural and social world in an inquisitive, creative, critical, and reflexive fashion. So, dialogic inquiry has this potential to get different perspectives together to ask their questions, as I said before, or generate solutions to problems and put them into practice. And this invites participants to engage in critical comparison, backing up questioning and negotiation of ideas. It can also help develop a disposition to listen to different perspectives and has as an important goal focusing on first-hand experiences as well as on the interest and self-generated questions of the participants in the inquiry. With all of these characteristics, we can say that promoting dialogic inquiry can promote active participation, potentially has a way of promoting inclusive interactions, the enactment of student agency, and critical and creative thinking. So going back again a bit to the professional development part, we do believe that having sustainable change in educational context involves supporting teachers in being active members in the decision making, that they have the skills and they have the knowledge to know how to adapt new approaches or create their own views about them. So with this in mind, our research team created the Toolkit for Enhancing Dialogic Inquiry, or TEDI, and it's meant to guide practitioners in promoting student participation in socioscientific practices in a critical, responsible, and inclusive fashion. So the strategies included in TEDI describe how novices and experts enact, or how they engage, in guided participation through dialogic inquiry. It is important to say that TEDI is not meant to be a rigid framework that has to be followed step by step. We actually want to see it more as a list or a conjunction of different informed-based strategies that teachers can select, can review, can adjust, and create their own new ways of using them in their classrooms, depending on the characteristics of their students, their interests, and their goals for teaching. These strategies are distributed into 3 complementary dimensions that I will describe in the following slides. But just as general characteristics, the strategies in TEDI are informed by empirical research. We aim with this tool to foster practitioners' enactment of agency, and it also follows the double approach of the Learning Together framework introduced by Sylvia earlier, that involves learning through dialogue, where we see dialogue as a means to engaging and understanding knowledge, as well as learning for dialogue, where developing the knowledge, the dispositions, the skills to participate in productive interactions as a goal in itself in education. Okay, these are the 3 dimensions in which the strategies are organized. These relate to different ways in which we can organize the social interactions in inquiry activities. We present these dimensions as separate. It's not that they're meant to be like isolated components. We just do it in a way to show practitioners how they can arrange activities in inquiry endeavors. So usually the strategies in these 3 dimensions overlap and they can complement to each other. It's just a way, as a practical way of looking at all the different ways in which we can organize activities in inquiry. In general, the strategies in these dimensions help teachers manage collaborative inquiry activities by opening, sustaining, and deepening whole group dialogue, by showing ways on how we can offer tailored support and transfer responsibility to learners, and ways in which we can foster productive peer collaboration. These strategies are guided by 8 principles of dialogic teaching and learning that include that it is collective, reciprocal, supportive, it's accumulative, it's deliberative, proposeful, it's inclusive, and it is also responsible. So in the following slides, I will describe very broadly the strategies that are included in each of these dimensions. In the first dimension, orchestration in plenaries, we will see ways in which teachers can organize whole class discussions and whole class activities involved in inquiry. They include strategies for managing activity and participation, helping teachers establish clear purposes of the activities for the students, offering tools and resources that are adequate or relevant for the activity, and also creating inclusive opportunities to participate. The strategies help students to explore ideas, deliberate ideas, construct by building on others' positionings and bringing information from other contexts, as well as helping them display accountability to the learning community, to evidence, and to rigorous thinking. And it also invites students to engage in metacognitive reflection of how they're doing in the activity and how they're advancing in the inquiry together. The aim of these strategies is to create an environment in whole class discussions where we can collectively construct meaning, and we can also engage all together in advancing inquiry activities. On the second dimension, the scaffolding and expert-novice interactions, we show some of the strategies that can help providing adjusted support to the changing levels of students' levels of understanding, competence, and even confidence in doing the strategy, in doing the activities. This support is aimed to be given by teachers, can be given by tutors, or even by peers that are more knowledgeable or have more skills. And the idea is to give this just always in the sense of transferring gradually and eventually the responsibility to the learners to do the activities. Within the strategies in this dimension, we find ways in which teachers can help maintain the direction and the purpose of the activity they're doing, questioning to extend and probe their understanding, ways in which teachers can model how to engage in inquiry, dialogue, and solve problems, adjusting levels of difficulty or giving informative feedback, as well as helping them synthesize ideas, connect ideas with other things they've done before, and eventually helping them get the responsibility of advancing the task themselves. And this relates, as scaffolding then here is not just helping them finish a task, it's also about helping them get this knowledge and the skills to eventually be able to regulate their own learning. And finally, in the dimension of collaborative learning among peers, we find ways in which students can work together to solve problems, to advance inquiry activities, and construct meaning together. And these activities can be mediated or helped. They can get assistance by a teacher or a tutor. But the idea is that these strategies are used in activities that are student-led, where they have the opportunity to have an active role in advancing the inquiry as well as helping each other. And the strategies within this dimension are related to ways in which they can express and elaborate ideas, explore different positionings, taking one themselves, questioning it, coordinating by synthesizing ideas or linking it to previous experiences or what they had done before, helping them reflect on how much they're advancing on the activity, how they're engaging in dialogue. And it also aims to include such strategies on how students can help establish inclusive interactions among themselves, where everyone feels recognized, valued, and respected. So these strategies aims to help to create environments in small group activities in which students can build knowledge together and engage in inquiry together. All these characteristics, TEDI aims to offer a flexible repertoire of strategies of which, as I said before, teachers can select, adjust, and refine. The idea is to support them in being co-designers of educational change. The use of TEDI is situated in a context of establishing communities of dialogic inquiry. We do believe that to help teachers engage in this way that is active and making decisions on how we can change these goals, we need to offer them with environments where they can reflect and collaborate with others, and then there is a culture of collaboration that is a goal in itself for the educational context. For this reason, we advocate for establishing communities of dialogic inquiry with students, faculty members, coordinators, directors, parents, and even some other members like from outside the wider community can participate in these inquiry and meaning-making activities. It is important, though, to establish these communities to have the support of the educational context as a whole, to have the systemic structures and cultures and accountability systems that value collaboration and also value the establishment of dialogue between teachers and students. We believe that helping students participating in dialogic inquiry communities can help them develop a flexible and transferable repertoire of knowledge, skills, and values, and that can help them become critical thinkers where they can transform culture, preserve the environment, and participate responsibly as citizens in a peaceful, pluralistic, inclusive, and democratic society with a sustainable vision of development and well-being. Thank you so much for your attention. It took a little bit with all the technical stuff, but I leave you here our emails in case you want to write them down and get in touch.
So this is, in essence, some of the content of our book. So we are very happy to share it with you and hear your reactions and get into a conversation with you.
Thank you so much to all of you for sharing. It's so, just speaking personally for a minute, I had the great pleasure of meeting Sylvia when I was first at the UC Links office in 1998, fresh out of graduate school, and have loved, collaborating and being connected with her ever since, and just seeing the work evolve. And for me, like seeing those slides and seeing the visual pictures of what you're doing, it's of course this is what you're doing. It looks, like I could have walked into a program at Santa Barbara, right? I mean, this looks like Glinda's program, right? And at UC Berkeley. I mean, it just feels like home to me seeing your work, and so recognizable and just so really beautiful. And I really love not just seeing that, but then also seeing all the ways that it's being expanded, right? And the Teddy toolkit, and also being able to see how you've made it so explicit. And I so look forward to really diving in to the book also. I just want to leave room for other people to share their impressions and reactions and questions. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
I would like to also just thank you and congratulate you on how you've presented a really comprehensive conceptual framework with such clarity, and that is so rare. I just appreciate the clarity of your presentation, not only just the clear slides and illustrations, the photographs, they're such great photographs that perfectly capture the activity you're talking about. I mean, I've seen so many slides where they have photographs that show people kind of standing around, but don't really show what the activity is. And it was just so amazing to see just both the illustrations and the clarity of your language and defining concepts uh, and showing the relationships between concepts and so on. I just really appreciate the work that you've done and the depth of it, and uh, uh, and also the balance that you've achieved between looking at teaching and instruction on one hand and the process of learning, not only among the students but among the adults who are involved in the activity. And I just really appreciate how you've brought all that together. So again, thank you.
Thank you so much, Charles. We really appreciate your comments, and also yours, Mara. They really make us very, very excited and happy. Thank you.
So there is no surprise here. Rafa has his hand up. Dive in, Rafa.
Hi, Rafa. Hi.
Hola. And I'm really curious because I think the three of you and those who have done work in Latin America can agree with me. In our institutional spaces, in schools, organizations, even universities, like we talk a lot about dialogue, but it's not something that we embrace as a way of living.
Yes.
And we actually come from cultures that are very caudillistas, in many ways. We have cultures that are leaning towards authoritarianism in our micro interactions in our daily lives. And so incorporating dialogue into a space, it's kind of like a cultural shock for many people, especially considering how schools in Latin America, at least I can see it in my field side, right, tend to understand the power relationship between teachers and students. So I would like to know more about the challenges that you have faced in the implementations of this toolkit when it comes to dealing with these particularities, these cultural particularities that we all find, in schools in Latin America.
Great. I have an anecdote that I can share. Well, at the beginning of one of the first session that we have at Inquire, we make this collaborative work with the students where they reflect. Basically, they have to collaborate to solve a problem collaboratively, and then reflect metacognitively on how we were speaking as a group. And from that, we established some
tips
to communicate as a group, peacefully and inclusive, and with inclusiveness and so on. Well, after we were doing this ground rules list, when I asked them, are we allowed, us students, to be in disaccordance with the teacher or with each other? And the students said no.
No.
And I was like, oh, we aren't allowed? Why? And they were like, well, in school, you usually have to listen. And I was like, okay, well, in this space, from now on, we are allowed to say when we are not in accordance with another person's points of view. And we emphasize that dialogue is rich when we can explain ourselves, what we are truly thinking or feeling, and understand that us people are full of very different perspectives. So if my teacher or peer does not have the same opinion as me on certain topic, that is not enough for me to stop being friends with him or with her, because we are full of many different opinions and experiences. So it's just one thing that I might not agree with, and it is okay to argument and to explain ourselves and maybe change our minds after the discussion. But that was very breathtaking for me to see in real life students saying, no, we're not supposed to speak our minds.
Can I add an idea for Annie? Since we worked in the Learning Together program before it became Inquire and so on, we worked in these multimedia rooms where undergraduate and graduate students and us worked with the kids. And there the shock was even, and the difference was even greater, because in these multimedia rooms, we learned over the years to be able to question, interact, I don't agree, etc. Why do I agree? And to really be expressed that we have a different position from someone else, including teachers, including us, as academics, undergraduates. And so we created really an atmosphere over the years of very familiar things where things could be happening, okay? Could happen in this way. But then, and teachers were there. They sometimes participated more, sometimes less, but they joined this more open and, let's say, democratic environment. But then they went back to the classrooms, and this is my territory. Here, you're not allowed to, to then do these things. Even, the teachers changed their personality, really, their style. We observed them a lot in the classrooms and in our setting, where there were computers, everything was a collaborative, etc. And at that time, classrooms were still with all this, still are, but lines,
the typical
arrangement
of chairs, all looking to the front,
everybody looking at the front, etc. And there the atmosphere was incredibly difficult. So we worked a lot with the teachers trying to change, but it was very, very difficult. So an anecdote: we were administering some tests, okay, and we say things like, for example, for writing, write it with your own words, do all this. And one student said, are we in learning together, or are we in our classroom? Because in our classroom we have to underline the main ideas, and in green, in blue, the other ideas. And so, but it's incredible how students, at least, are so flexible at discriminating in which environment they're in and how they are to behave in those. So it is possible. That would be the message that I would say.
Can I add something tiny bit more? I think that's why we ended up wanting to work with children, well, the students. We were working primary school, but it can be students in general, but as well with teachers. Because on one hand, students are like, I'm not used to this. This is not what usually happens in my classroom. What am I supposed to do? Maybe sometimes they don't feel that comfortable with it. And teachers as well, because then when they try to make these questions or pose these questions to the class, they don't get the responses immediately. And they're like, okay, this is not working. I need to stop. So it is a work on both sides, where we need to make them feel secure and able to give their own opinions and to engage with each other. So it's like battling with the authority and vertical relationships, and also feeling that you are able to do it, both the students and the teachers. And that's why we say that it's so important to give this a company like being with them both for students and teachers in this process.
Thank you for your answers. Those are great anecdotes.
Thank you, Rafa, for questions.
Your responses also remind me of also something that we often see in the after school programs. So what you're experiencing is in school, but even like thinking about, you know, like sometimes UC Links programs are part of a larger after school program, right? And the larger after school program may have a very different set of you know, guidelines, frameworks, expectations, you know, and then when they go to the UC Links program, you know, it's a very different, you know, the kids are able to engage and participate and be far more agentic, right? And yeah, and so I feel like it's these sometimes misalignments in context, whether it be in school or after school. And it makes me wonder also, given your context, you know, this the TEDdy toolkit for teachers too, like, are you partnering with teacher preparation programs at UNAM? Or is that something that you're thinking of, or?
Well, at the moment, it's something that we have created that the research group has created based on literature and experience from the research that has been done in Learning Together. But eventually it would be so great to be working with teachers actually to implement it. Like, we're at the moment working in more of a research control environment, perhaps, with researchers and students coming from the faculty going and implementing it. We do know some of the teachers. I know Sylvia and Annie and the team work in a school where they have really close ties with the teachers where they can implement these kind of strategies. But ideally, it would be something like a collaborative process of keep evolving with the toolkit. Like
Yeah. In fact, I have a graduate student who will know this month whether she has been, well, next month, accepted in the graduate program. And if she does, her research, doctoral research, will be implementing, adapting, etc., TEDdy in the classrooms, working with teachers. So we're very excited about the possibility of testing it empirically, working with it in a long longitudinal study to really see what changes we can achieve through implementing these tools in the classroom, so or in schools, you know, and hopefully we want to gradually penetrate the classrooms, but also gradually help transform institutions into really appropriating dialogic inquiry as a way of being, as a way of interacting, you know?
Thank you. I have no doubt you are already transforming institutions. So I see that as a very attainable goal.
Yeah. Well, okay, yes, Charles.
You've spoken at some length about the roles of the different participants in your Inquire, Project Inquire, and other efforts you've been involved in. The university people, the teachers, and so on, as well as the kids. Can you elaborate a little bit more on how these different partners collaborate in the context of the activity?
Yeah. So do you want to start or should I?
Whatever. Yes, it's not, you know, very structured or anything like that. It's for example, we as a team get together, plan things with the people at the Institute of Ecology. We have undergraduates from ecology and from psychology, and we have a lot of, you know, sessions where we design together with the psychology and biology students activities, but we also, to the extent that we can, because sometimes teachers obviously have a very demanding agenda, we get together with them. Sometimes we have been in workshops with the teachers, and that's a very nice space, because even if we work with primary school at the moment, Annie is extending the work in preschool, whole of primary, secondary, and upper school, and you know, preparatory school also. And but we come to the school and we work with the teachers in these spaces, in workshops, but also just in a day-to-day, sometimes even, at lunch, we're just eating our lunch and, chatting and interacting. We have a great, I must say, okay, that now in this phase of our work in Inquire, as I said, we are working in a private school, but this is a very open school. They are, in fact, they're religious, but the religion keeps very much separate from everything else, and they are into ODS, inclusion. They're very open to new ideas and innovation. So we really struck luck there with a very open school. And so we, the coordinator is fabulous. So she, let's do this. Yeah, let's do it. And, she's very, very engaged with all of this. So we really have worked, I would say, quite fluidly with teachers, with administrators, the directors, I think, love us, I would say. They really like the directive. They really like our work. They have programs there for dissemination, and they invite us to join in radio programs or television programs to talk about. And of course, by now, we have worked there for 4 years. They realize all the benefits that the program is bringing to the school. So, I mean, next week we're having the cultural fair, and it's always like, you talk to the teachers and to the parents, and show them what we're doing, because they have realized the effects. We have very interesting anecdotes, because at the moment our anecdotes, we'd like to do a more serious project in that respect, but of high school students and parents that say, aren't we doing it in high school? I mean, we really want this to continue. The teachers say that the kids in high school are the ones that have been in Inquire, have got critical thinking, they're argumentative, that they have these skills, and now they demand that they ask for the program is extended to the grade. So I think we have in 4 years been able to penetrate the system, but I do want to say that it's a very special niche.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which, we can test that. We really would like to go back to public schools where things are much more challenging in so many respects.
I just want to add that the work of the pedagogical coordinator is key in this work, because at the very, very beginning, certain teachers were reluctant to work with us, because, I mean, it's, of course, because they have a lot of work. And then a group of researchers come and tell me that they want to collaborate with me. Yes, no. So at the beginning, not all of the teachers, but certain teachers were a bit reluctant because of the workload, because they feel like the workload will, be more with this collaboration. But the pedagogical coordinator, Miss Christie, she knew the program. When she read about the program, when we spoke with her about the program, she could see the links between our aims as a research group, as this, the view that we had on education, and the abilities and the values and the knowledge that she, as the pedagogical coordinator, wanted to promote in the school. And thus she believed in the project, and thus worked very closely with the teachers and made a structure so the teachers didn't feel like they had to do more work, but do the work that they are already doing by collaborating with us in this project.
Yes.
And so she is working with the teachers all the time, looking at our proposals, but then adapting them in collaboration with their teachers, and then coming back to us with new ideas, and then opening up the spaces of discussion between the teachers and her and us. And all of this, you need a leader inside these schools. And in this specific institution is Miss Christie. I think that without her, it would have been very much more difficult to achieve the things that we have been achieving at the school.
Yep. Okay. I think Mayra has a question, so please go ahead, Mayra.
Yes, Mayra.
Yeah, no, thank you, Sylvia, Anna, and Anna. Very insightful. My question is, what is the biggest challenge to have this implemented in public schools in Mexico right now? I know we have like Mexico has a new female president, so I'm very curious to see like her initiatives. So yeah, like what are your insights?
Okay, can I?
Yeah,
Yes,
first.
okay.
I don't know where to start. After working in schools for 45 years, public schools, we were 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we were told after we presented this proposal to do it in public schools, which is where my heart is, our heart is, and we would always wanted to work there. And the proposal, they took a year to read the proposal and to evaluate the proposal. And then eventually they asked us to come to a meeting. We were going to the meeting, and 10 minutes before we arrived to the meeting, we just received a message saying, oh, the coordinator cannot see you today. And that happened many times. So, and then they just sent us a letter saying, due to new regulations, anybody that is not hired by the schools are precluded from entering the
premises.
the premises. I have a graduate student working now. He's now in the Netherlands doing his doctorate, and he managed to penetrate a school because public school because he knew the director, etc., etc. He started working, collecting data for his dissertation, and from one day to the next, the director changed, and he was told, "You're not allowed to work in the school anymore. You're not even allowed to enter the school, not even to put your feet in the school." So fortunately for us, he had collected quite a lot of data, and he's now in the Netherlands defending or working on his dissertation. But I mean, the hurdles for working in public schools are tremendous in so many ways. But I must say that I had been managed to navigate all those hurdles for 45 years, in spite of all that. But now we're actually prohibited to enter schools. I must say, because with Learning Together, once we started and once the teachers knew, and once the coordinator inspectors knew the work, they welcomed it. They really appreciated what we were doing. We worked with them for almost 30 years. So you can gain ground once you break a lot of shackles and a lot of you say, okay, there's a change of government, and I want to say there's a lot of hope that things change, but unfortunately, at least in this respect, I'm not going to get into politics, but in this respect, there is not openness. And I'm going to say something very daring here. But one of the reasons we are not allowed to go in, researchers, etc., is that they don't want evaluation, they don't want observation, they don't want accountability. There's no more testing in Mexico. Well, testing, yes, informal, but not formal testing as it was done before. Nationwide. There's no more testing. There's no transparency in the education system, and we are very, very worried. But our heart is in public schools, and we really want to go back to working in that sector because they are the ones that most need it.
It seems that this kind of work has always been on the periphery and has always been a kind of renegade activity with respect to the powers that be and the way things are in most nations I appreciate your comments and how hard it is and how impossible it is to work in the public schools in Mexico, there are other kinds of impossibilities that come into play in other nations like the United States, and I mean we've all kind of come against that concrete wall, and so I wonder if one of our strategies for the future might need to be how do we continue this kind of renegade activity? How do we continue to kind of work on the edges and kind of chip at the concrete at the edges until we kind of get inside the cracks of
Yes.
the system, you know? I think maybe that's needs to be our strategy at this point. I just wonder, and I just kind of wonder about that, you know.
Yeah, we're either stubborn or resilient. I don't know, you know, but one of those, yes. But
Yeah.
you need a lot of, you know, thick skin to,
Yes, exactly.
you know, be frustration after frustration and persevere regardless.
Right.
Go ahead, Marisa.
Yeah, I was gonna say, hola, mucho gusto. Thank you for
Hola.
your work. This was awesome. My favorite part, I think what everyone was saying earlier was the pictures bringing so much, like it feels like you're in time and it feels like you're right there, whether it be at Xochimilco or the other places or in the Rio. That was super cool. And my favorite part was the ajolotes. I'm sure the kids are super excited about that. Super cool.
Thank you so much for being with us today and listening.